Welcome to the Conquering Chronic Illness Show. I'm your host, Daphne Wiswell, the chronic illness coach. And each week, I'm going to be bringing you stories, strategies, and sparks of hope that I pray will encourage you on your journey through life as a conqueror. If illness, mindsets, or other obstacles have held you back from living the life you desire, and you've been looking for real hope, real strategy, and real connection, then you've come to the right place. I'm so glad you're here. Well, hey there. Welcome back to the show. In this episode, I'm going to be talking to you about 3 red flags, 3 signs that might clue you in that it's time to fire your doctor and find a new one. And I have 3 different stories to share with you to illustrate these points because I just think that they really drive them home. These are actual real stories of real appointments that I sat in with my mom, my sister, and my daughter, all on different occasions, all with different physicians. And I'm not going to name names because I'm not about bad mouthing people. And I know that even doctors have bad days. And with all of these physicians, well, no, I take that back. 2 out of 3, it was the first time we saw them. And so maybe it just wasn't a good day for them. But because of what happened in those appointments, we never went to see them again because we knew that they weren't the doctors that we needed on our care team. They weren't the kind of people who were going to be willing to partner with us to make sure that we could really steward our bodies well and really tap into the strategies that each of them needed to achieve better health. And so I'll start with the story of my mom. So my mom has a lung condition. And actually, now that I'm saying this, if you're listening to this episode and you don't know about the recall on the Respironics CPAP machine, then you need to go look at your machine. You need to talk to your rep. You need to call the company and make sure you're not using a Respironics CPAP machine that had a recall, because we believe that that actually might be part of the reason that my mom has this severe lung condition. Okay, so that was a little tangent, but we were with my mom at an appointment where she was seeing a pulmonologist, which is a lung specialist, because of this condition. And I started asking this doctor questions about different tests that he planned to run, lab values that he had checked, things that I just wanted to hear about from him. My mom is so gracious to let me go to her appointments and ask lots of questions just to try and help her understand what it is that's happening. And this doctor sat back in his chair, like put his chart on the desk, sat back in his chair, crossed his arms across his chest, and said, "Oh, I see. Are you going to tell me how this appointment is going to go?" And the look on his face just said, like, "I'm not okay with you asking me questions. I'm not okay with you taking more time than I anticipated this appointment to take. And we're going to get through this as quickly as possible. And you're going to do what I say. And that's going to be the end of that." It was so obvious that that's how this needed to go for him. But because I really care about my mom, and because my mom really cares about her health, the health of her body, the health of her lungs, that was not okay with me. That was a huge red flag. So, number 1 sign that it might be time to fire your doctor is when they make it obvious to you that they don't have time for your questions, that they don't appreciate your questions, that they don't want to educate you on your condition or your prognosis or the treatment options. They just want to write you a prescription or send you off for a test or send you to another doctor and not have to really have a conversation with you. Huge red flag. Time to find a new doctor, because that person isn't someone who is really invested in the long-term journey of your health. Okay, another story happened with my sister. And this was during a time when she was getting a new diagnosis. There were a lot of things going on with her. And so she was seeing a specialist, and this specialist put her on a medication. And what happened when she started taking this medication was we realized she was having severe low blood sugar episodes. And my sister doesn't have any issues with blood sugar. But this medication was causing her blood sugar to plummet. And how do I know that? Because I have a son with type 1 diabetes and we've been checking blood sugar for over 16 years. And so I recognize the signs and symptoms of low blood sugar. And when she started exhibiting those, I just went, I got our meter, made sure I had a clean lancet, the little thing you poke your finger with. We're not going to use the same needles. That's not sanitary. But I checked her blood sugar and I can't remember if it was like in the 40s or the 50s, but a normal healthy number is somewhere between 80 to 120. So she was really, really low. She was lethargic. She wasn't responding appropriately when we were trying to talk to her. She seemed kind of out of it. And so we're in this doctor's appointment and we're telling her, we think that maybe the dosage might be too high, or maybe this isn't the right medication. Like, is there another alternative? Because she had this experience with her blood sugar. And the doctor looked at her and was like, how do you know that you had a low blood sugar? And she said, well, we checked, my sister checked it. We checked my blood sugar. And the doctor very sternly said, I can't have you checking your blood sugar. And so red flag number 2, when your doctor doesn't want you to be informed about your health, when they don't want you to do everything that you can possibly do to try and dig down and find the root cause and discover what the best treatment options are for you. Again, I guess this is kind of the same thing where it's like, don't ask questions, just do what I say. And that's really frustrating because having a low blood sugar can be a very dangerous thing. So she didn't see that doctor anymore. It was the end of that relationship for her and she had to find a new specialist. And after that, thankfully, she got some answers. She got off of that medication. She stopped having the crazy low blood sugar episodes and she has had a drastic transformation in her health. I'm really excited to have her on the show pretty soon. And so I can't wait for her to share the story with you. But red flag number 2, your doctor is adamant that the treatment plan that they have given you is what you need to follow. No questions asked, even if you have a side effect or a scary episode or something that isn't right. A doctor should be willing to talk that out with you and to explore what caused that and to try alternative solutions. It's not okay for them to be like, just do what I say and don't question me. And don't tell me that you had this crazy thing that's not ever supposed to happen, because that's another thing with my family that I find is really interesting. And I don't know if it happens to you and your family, but we are always, always, always having doctors tell us, oh, that's very rare. I can't believe that happened to you. And so now we all kind of laugh at this inside joke we have where, like, if a doctor says, oh, this could be a side effect to this procedure or this medication or whatever, we're kind of like, oh no, if it's a rare thing, then we don't want to try that because we're always the rare ones. Okay. Third story was with my daughter. So my daughter has juvenile psoriatic arthritis and ankylosing spondylitis and several other things that we deal with. But she was diagnosed when she was 10 years old. And around the time she was 13, she went into remission and she wasn't in pain for about a year. So her rheumatologist took her off of all the really strong medications that she was on, and she was doing fantastic. Well, then we moved about 4 hours away from all of our family, all of her friends, the life that she had always known. She was almost 14 at that point. And I think, stress is a big trigger for autoimmune conditions. And so I think just the stress of that move and all of the changes and dad getting a new job, all that kind of stuff may have triggered a flare. So we called to see if we could get her into her previous doctor, because even though it was a long drive, I was, willing to do whatever it takes to get her there. But they didn't have any openings for a little over 3 months, I think I remember. So I asked around, because I thought, well, it is time to establish care with the physician in our area. So let me see if I can get some recommendations. So I asked around, I got some recommendations, people who highly, highly said, go see this guy. And so we went to this doctor because there was less of a wait to get in, still a little wait, maybe 6 or 8 weeks, I think. And I told them, she's in a flare, I'm really concerned about that. Is there anything we can do? Do you have what is it called? Like a cancellation list where, like, if someone cancels, you could like get in there quickly. But with those kinds of appointments, it's so hard to get in that a lot of times people really don't cancel. They have an appointment, they're going to go. So we waited about 6 to 8 weeks to go and see him. And by that time, her joints were really in a bad place. And this doctor who had never seen us, first of all, we were in the waiting room for probably about 30 minutes, and then in the exam room without anyone for a little over 30 minutes. So we waited for an hour before the doctor actually came into the room, and he flew in. Like, you could tell he was frazzled. It wasn't his day. I feel bad for this guy, but I think several of he was just behind on his patient load. And so he was asking her questions to get through, her chart and her history and all of that kind of thing. And he was looking really frustrated that she wasn't answering the questions as quickly as he would have liked. And so then he started asking me questions, and I'm telling him, about the situation and the move and the stress and all those kinds of things. And then he wanted to know about her being off of the medications, which her previous doctor had said, like, you don't need to be taking these if you're in this kind of remission, right? You're not having symptoms. And so she wasn't taking them. So refills expired, all that kind of stuff. And this doctor looked at my almost 14-year-old daughter and said, you are going to be crippled by the time you are 20. And I immediately ended the conversation. My daughter burst into tears, and I thought, how does a human being sit across the table from a child and say something to them like that? And I know from the different people that I've talked to and worked with and journeyed alongside of, that it doesn't just happen to children, it happens to people of all ages. And so red flag number 3 is if a doctor uses a scare tactic or gives you this crazy, terrible prognosis that, maybe it's possibly true. It might be a fact that if you have XYZ condition, you can expect XYZ to happen, but it can be said in a gentler, kinder, more compassionate way than you are going to be crippled by the time you are 20. And so when we left that appointment, I told my daughter, well, we know for sure this is not your pediatric rheumatologist. And it took us a little while, but we found one that we absolutely love, drive a little over 2 hours to see him every visit. And he is amazing. So I wanted to share these things with you because I think that a lot of people don't realize that it's okay to fire your doctor. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to say, hey, I tried this treatment plan that you gave me, but I'm having this strange reaction and I don't think that's normal. Is there an alternative? And for your doctor should respond kindly and compassionately and want to help you. That's actually their job, is to help you get better, to find answers, to dig down deep so that you can live a long and healthy life. They should not speak. I don't want to say the word curses, but like, that's what it felt like that day when he said to my daughter, you're going to be crippled by the time you're 20. And so one of the things that we did immediately when I left there is say, you are not going to be crippled by the time you are 20, because the Bible says that the power of life and death is in the tongue. And so we refused to receive that word that he spoke over us, and we declared life over her body and her joints. And I'm happy to say that she's a little over 20 years old and she's not crippled. She's doing amazing, still dealing with the arthritis, still using treatments and medications and supplements and good nutrition and all of those kinds of things, but not crippled, not in a wheelchair, like he said. So I wanted to share these stories with you today and these red flags just to encourage you that if you're in the middle of a diagnosis, or you're trying to get a diagnosis, or you've been dealing with an illness for a long time and you're not seeing progress, and when you go see your doctor, you don't feel supported, you don't feel like you can ask questions, you feel like you're rushed in and out of there, you feel like they get upset with you if you tell them about any odd thing that's happened to you because of something they recommended. No, you have permission to receive excellent care from physicians who really want to see you thrive. And so I hope that this short episode will encourage you to think about that the next time you make a doctor appointment. The next time you go and see them, are they really supporting you? Are they listening to you? Are they allowing you to ask questions? Are they giving you a good education about the treatment plans, the risks, the side effects, what's going to happen if you don't decide to do a certain treatment? There might be times where your doctor was like, you have to have this treatment. You just have to, because XYZ is going to happen if you don't. And you might say, well, I still don't want to do it. And they should support you even in that. They should support you no matter what. Your physician is there to educate you, empower you, and support you on your journey to living a thriving life in spite of whatever illness or diagnosis you face. And if he or she is not doing that, then it's time for you to fire them and get a new one. Thank you for listening to the Conquering Chronic Illness Show. I bless you to know that you are more than a conqueror. And if you'd like to get around other women who are on a journey to developing that identity for themselves, that identity of conqueror, then you're invited to join me in my totally free Facebook group called The Conqueror Community. It's a place where you can connect with like-minded conquerors, women who are on a journey of conquering all the things that are threatening to stand in the way of the abundant life Jesus promised them. When you gather in a community of women who are encouraging and uplifting and supportive and full of hope and their own testimonies of conquering, then it fuels your faith to keep going on your own journey. So I hope that I'll see you there.